this video, we'll be going over the fire bowl and planter basics. In this segment, we will be covering the mix design and the proper way of mixing. Okay guys, here's our setup for this mix. I've got two 5-gallon buckets here, one to mix in and one for water. I also have two of the purified water containers that you usually would see on top of water dispensers. I use those in the shop, that way I can tell exactly how much water I'm using. The white container has a fire clay. Right here what you're seeing is a shop vac that is just set right inside of the bucket. It just helps getting all the dust out of the shop when you're mixing. I use this a lot. Also, we have concrete mix, which is fast setting from Quikrete, and high strength concrete mix from Quikrete as well. And also, this is a variable speed drill with a egg beater style mixer on the end. You can pick these up at home improvement stores, and a lot of times you will find them where the tile materials are. Okay, turn on your vac so that can help with the dust collection. I usually start out with about 3 inches of water in the bottom of the bucket, especially with a concrete mix. That way the concrete becomes hydrated and you can adjust the amounts of water that you use and just kind of fine tune it as you go. Okay, I'm going to start the mix out. Let me give you a little tip here. I usually use a razor knife. Just cut the bag just like that. I'm going to start out with this 50-pound bag of fast set because I like mixing that in first. That way I can see the mix start to firm up, because this activates pretty quick. Just take your time pouring it in the bucket. I also have a fan blowing on me at the time. That's probably not helping out with the dust, but just for you to get the idea, if the fan wasn't blowing directly on me, a lot of that blowback when you're pouring will be sucked through the back. And I'm only going to put about a quarter of this bag, and this is an 80-pound bag of high-strength concrete. Before we get started mixing, I just wanted to show you some different styles of heads that can go on your variable speed drills. The first two I don't use a whole lot of. These are good for overlays and a finer material. I find that the egg beater style that you see right here is the best, using it for concrete mixing or mortar mixing for vertical applications. As you can see, this is the one that I use a lot of. It tends to whip the material a lot faster and just kind of gets more of a rotation. There are many different heads. I would suggest trying a few and seeing which one works best for you. As you can see, the mix is pretty loose right now. It won't take long for the fast set concrete to start kicking off. Once it does, the mix will start to firm up. This is allowing me to have a little bit more of a window to get both bowls pressed. To tighten the mix up, I'm going to be adding a little bit more concrete. I will fill the bucket all the way up to about 3/4 of the way, and I'm going to leave a quarter of the bucket to add in my fire clay. watch how fast the mix is actually stiffening up now since we added the extra concrete. This is what we want. We want a stiffer mix so that when we place the mix in the bottom of the bowls, we can actually work it up the sides without it wanting to slope down on us and fall off the sides. It also allows us to leave those little pockets that you're going to see that gives it more of a rustic look. So as you notice, I started out with 3 inches of water. I put in a quarter of the 50-pound bag of the fast set, and then I put in another half of a bag of the 80-pound bag of regular high-strength concrete, mixed it all in, and then it was still loose. So what I ended up doing was adding a little bit more of the high-strength concrete. And notice up until this point we have not added any more water. So now I'm going to put a quarter of my fire clay, which this is a quart of fire clay. And now I'm going to add a little bit of water. And I'm just going to start mixing. As you noticed, you can see the clay turn from the whitish color, and then you can see the actual clay that was in that mix. So as I'm adding a little bit more, I'm just doing a little bit at a time, because what will happen sometimes with clay is it'll clump on you, and then when you go to press it into the bowls, you'll have some weak spots because it's going to be just clay and it won't have any binding material in it. And that will just cause cracks and also failure in the future. Okay, what you don't want at this time is to add too much water to where your mix gets too loose. As you notice, as the mixer is going around in a circle, it's leaving somewhat of a trail. You'll notice now I'm going to add a little bit more fire clay. And as this is mixed in, watch the side rails of the bucket. You'll see that the actual mix is actually rising up to it and then falling over. That's when you know you have a great mix. Is now I'm going down deep in the bottom of it and being able to pull that material back up to the top and make sure it's thoroughly mixed. You'll see it as it starts to roll off of the actual bucket itself. Sometimes you just want to go with a quicker motion to get things stirred in quicker. But right now you can kind of see it starting to hold its shape. So I'm going to add just a little bit more water right now just to kind of top things off, to give me a little bit more time to actually be able to press both bowls. And that way I can add a little bit more fire clay now and make the mix exactly where I want it to be. There are tons of different additives and mixes that can be created. You can experiment with these mixes. I wanted to put together this mix for this series so that someone who doesn't have a whole lot of knowledge on the different mixes, so that they can actually go out to the home improvement stores, pick it up, and create and play with their own mix and really get used to using things that's really available in their local area. Okay, as I add in this final amount of fire clay, you're going to see the mix is going to be absolutely perfect at the end of this. I have also used straight fast set. It's very fast, it kicks off extremely fast, and it's really not enjoyable to try to work it all at one time. The way that we're mixing it here, it gives you a little bit more time to work the material, to get your shape like you want it, and the key here is just not adding too much water, so you have to fight the mix. Fire clay is available at pretty much anywhere that carries brick because a lot of times the masons will need it to do fireplaces and that kind of thing. So just check with them in your local area. But as you can see, the mix looks great. It's going to hold its shape. And now we're going to move on to hand pressing the bowls.